Hello and welcome to Experts Corner. This is Maheen Jaffrey. Tonight we'll be taking a look at the Afghan Taliban and Indian nexus and how they're waging a low-intensity conflict against Pakistan. As we know, the last round of talks have been failed to provide any workable solution, and there has been no guarantees from the Afghan Taliban side against the TTP attacks on Pakistan. Also, keeping the background in mind and the timings, we see that India has been warming up ties with Kabul, not only just the diplomatic outreach, also projects in Afghanistan. Not just that, it is actually giving a lot of support to these factions, these terror elements, like for example financial support and the logistical support. And Pakistan has time and again given irrefutable evidence to the world when it comes to this. Now, it seems like Kabul has been, is being played at the hands of India, and it's more acting like a tool towards India, because India is now trying to, compensate its defeat. So what we need to look at tonight is what options does really Pakistan have, and what would be the security dynamics when it comes to the regional, dynamics. Also, we'd be taking a look at the much anticipated meeting of the President Xi Jinping and Donald Trump. This was after 6 years, and it's a historical meeting. President Trump has termed this a great success, while President Xi Jinping has said that there has been consensus, and he said that the both sides need to come together and give a follow-up thoroughly, and maybe there's a need to uphold the consensus. Now, we'd be taking a look at what does this meeting means to the rest of the world, what does this deal means to the world, and also the supply chain, and of course the global financial market as well. But we've been joined for further analysis by our experts, Mr. Farrukh Pitafi in studio. Also online we have Barrister Fatima Shaheen, and also we've been joined by Major General retired Inam Haque on Zoom. He's a senior analyst. Thank you so much, all of you, and thank you for joining in. Now, General Saab, we'd come to you starting from the Indian-Afghan Taliban nexus. How do you see this nexus impacting the regional situation, especially when it comes to the security dynamics of the cross-border attacks happening from the Afghanistan side?
Thank you, Moin. Thank you, Pitafi. Important question, but I will not call it a nexus, because I very much doubt that this will develop into a full-blown nexus between a Muslim Afghanistan and a Hindu India against Muslim Pakistan, which has got punishing leverages vis-a-vis Afghanistan. I would call it a marriage of convergence. And this marriage of convergence, in my opinion, is not going to last very long. Reasons. It was not very long ago that the same India would call the Tehreek-e-Taliban Afghanistan or the present Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan as terrorists. And they were in cahoots with the 49 countries led by the superpower inside Afghanistan. In my own personal experience, when I would visit, the American bases all over Afghanistan were run by the Indian auxiliary forces inside. And you know that they were actually out there to kill all these Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan fighters and forces in cahoots with the American and the NATO forces. So it's only a matter of convergence. Secondly, I don't think so that within the Kandahar, the mover and shaker of the movement, everybody is on the same page as far as the relationship between Afghanistan and India is concerned. Third, the military arm of the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan, the Haqqanis in the north, they are not very much receptive to the idea of Afghanistan joining hands with India against Pakistan. So this is just a marriage of convergence. I don't doubt that it will develop into full-blown any sort of a conspiracy against Pakistan. However, if it does so, let me now talk to you about the military side of the whole thing. If it does so, God forbid, which is not likely, I feel that Pakistan and Pakistan's professional military has demonstrated ability to conduct a 1.5 front war very effectively. There was a thinking in the military that we wanted to avoid a two-front war simultaneously with India and on the western border. Now that threat to some extent has been mitigated, and I now call the Afghan front as a half front, and your military is capable of dealing with this half front, because the nature of the military operation against Afghanistan, if push comes to shove, is going to be different. And we can discuss this in a subsequent question. Jay.
Absolutely. General Saab, you talked about two-front war. Let's talk about Pakistan's situation. On the east, we know who's there. On the west, there are hostilities and there has been an increase in insurgency and violence and militancy. How do you see Pakistan, treading on this very complex path where it has to deal with both these borders in a way that it is going to defend its sovereignty at any cost? Pakistan has always responded in a very befitting way and also given out a clear message to the world. How do you see Pakistan treading in this path?
Yeah, and a very important, a very interesting question. I doubt that the situation, whether we India and Afghanistan, have changed very much in the past 20 years or so. With Afghanistan, particularly in the last 4 years, and with India, I think for the past 20, 25 years. We are in a situation of uneasy peace as far as the eastern border with India is concerned. And our western border has shot up a little bit recently because of the autocracy and obstinance of the Afghan Taliban. As far as the situation is concerned militarily, your military has demonstrated its ability during the skirmish with India in May. And it is not only in conventional fields that your military is very much capable of fighting India successfully. It is the non-conventional means also that is a nightmare to all countries who are inimical to Pakistan and Pakistan's interest. So, in my opinion, the situation with India has not changed much. We are in a situation of uneasy peace. They have said that Operation Sindoor has not culminated. Well, Pakistan has said time and time again that we are ready to prolong the operation if we feel so. And when the Indian Army chief said about the location of Pakistan on the map, I think for the first time the ISPR went a step further and they said that if push comes to shove, the erasure would be mutual. He was referring to the exchange of nuclear weapons between the two countries, a scenario which is very dreadful. I must say something that I think is very important when it comes to India. There is a lobby within the Indian military establishment, serving and retired, who think that there is a space with Pakistan for a conventional punitive war under the nuclear overhang. This is a very dangerous fallacy. And as the chief also, army chief also alluded to during the last 2 or 3 days, this is something which is going to bring South Asia to the brink of a nuclear war. And I hope that the sooner the Indian military establishment and decision makers in the politics realize this danger, the better it is for peace in the region. So that is as far as India is concerned. As far as Afghanistan is concerned, in my reckoning, if the situation goes worse, which is not likely to my reckoning, because people on both sides are directly affected, and there is a strong movement for peace, especially among the Pashtuns on both sides, because of the relationships, because of the trade, because of the commerce, and because of the other linkages that both sides have, eastern Afghanistan and western Pakistan. So I doubt that the war is going to escalate into more sort of a dangerous phase. And if it does so, it is not going to go beyond artillery duels, the firing on the international border, that the Durand line, and that's it. I doubt that the Afghanistan army is capable of providing, launching incursion into Pakistan. And if they do so, the Pakistan military, with the technology that we have, is very much capable of dealing with that. And you've seen a demonstration of that today when the Mullah Muzahim, who was the second in command in the TTP from Bajawad, was killed in Bajawad today. He was basically from Deal. So that is the kind of response that Pakistan is able to give 24/7. So beyond that, I doubt that there is going to be any. Yes, suicide bombers can come and they can sort of create a little bit of internal stability. But Pakistan has been dealing with that situation for quite a long time. So your entire system and apparatus is geared to deal with that. So I doubt that
Absolutely,
it's
General
going
Saab.
to go beyond that. And it's going to be,
Absolutely.
if push comes to shove and both countries get involved and India comes to the aid of Afghanistan, Indian aid would have to Afghanistan would be basically logistic aid, training aid, diplomatic aid to some extent, not more, not less. So this is not a situation which is very, very worrisome for Pakistan. At this point in time, I think Pakistan is in good hands. military and political leadership are on the same page, and we are very much capable militarily to deal
We
with
agree, General
situations
Saab.
with more
We
security
agree to
level.
that.
Yeah.
Pakistan has shown its capability and recently as well, and we agree to that. Military and civil leadership are on the same page. But let's talk about the comment coming from Afghanistan side. We know that Afghanistan commented that we are going to be attacking Islamabad if there's hostilities, that occur in Afghanistan. To which the Defense Minister Khwaja Asif very strongly responded that Pakistan's response is going to be 50 times, more and more strict, more fierce this time. How do you think, even in this scenario, how do you think that the situation might not, escalate, because the response of Pakistan has been like never before?
Uh, I think this is posturing, and I call it political posturing. As far as I'm concerned, I don't like hyperbole, and I don't like extreme positions taken between the countries. You are a normal country. Pakistan is a normal country, and Afghanistan is an abnormal country. The rulers in Afghanistan are not schooled in diplomacy, in statecraft, and governance. So that allowance has to be given to them. The second point, Maheen, is that the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan is not a monolith that we like it to be. It is not a monolith. There are four power centers within Afghanistan. Uh, First and foremost is Kandahar, which is basically Ahmad Zai, Muhammad Zai, Duranis, and they are the movers and shakers of the movement. They are the puritanical arm of the Islamic Emirate, and they are the ruler right now because they enjoy religious legitimacy inside Afghanistan. The second power center is Haqqanis. Haqqanis border the western side of Pakistan. Haqqanis, Anas Haqqani, Jalaluddin Haqqani, they are basically Zadran, and they have deep relationship with the North Waziristan in Pakistan, filial relationship, trade relationship, commerce, their properties here, their madrasa is there in Pakistan, and they have actually collaborated very, very extensively with Pakistan and Pakistan's military and intelligence apparatus during the war against the Russians and the recent war against the NATO-US combined. So it is a power center which is more in line with you than it is with perhaps with Kandahar. The third power center in Afghanistan is the north of Hindu Kush, which is basically the non-Pashto speaking Tajik, Uzbek, and other minorities, which are right now in a little subdued positions. They don't have a leadership right now. And the fourth, slightly half power center is Herat, which is basically having a little bit of a influence with Iran. So Afghanistan or the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan is not a monolith, and you have to deal with all these people separately. So beyond bluster, beyond rhetoric, I doubt that there is going to be any major escalation in violence between both sides, and we should also be careful in not ratcheting up the rhetoric to a point where tomorrow we find it embarrassingly difficult for us to climb down. India exactly does the same thing when it deals with Pakistan because of the jingoism in the media. They go very high as far as the escalation letter is concerned, and then it is very difficult for them to come down from that high perch in the escalation letter without embarrassment. And they do something militarily and get a beating from Pakistan. So we should avoid this thing with Afghanistan. Afghanistan, at the end of the day, is a country which shares a lot of common ethnicity, Pashtun ethnicity. It has got cultural relationship, religious relationship, trade and commerce relationship with Pakistan, though it is not of any overwhelming geostrategic importance to Pakistan, but it is still a neighbor, and cannot change geography. We have to live together, and I'm sure that senior elements and wiser heads within the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan, particularly the Haqqanis, they also understand the perils of going to a position which is untenable for them subsequently. Yeah.
General Saab, let's talk about the round of talks that happened recently. We know they have failed to provide any workable solution, which was very important, as you said, that it is imperative for Pakistan to have peace because Afghanistan is its, neighbor. And there has been disappointment expressed from the Pakistani side. Seems like Kabul's strings are being pulled from the other side, because every time we were close to, coming to a deal and, making a deal, there happened some, they used to call Kabul, and that was a point where we have failed again and again. How do you see Pakistan countering that? Kabul, being controlled by India?
I mean, again, I take a little different view on this. And my view is that no, Islamic Emirate is not controlled by India, and nobody can control the Islamic Emirate if history is any guide. there is internal division inside the Islamic Emirate. Uh, you see, when the first round happened in Doha, the relationship between normal countries are conducted internationally by the foreign ministries. But in this case, the foreign minister of Afghanistan was nowhere to be seen because Muttaqi Saab had gone to the Indian Yatra where he had said something which was not liked by Pakistan. And as far as Pakistan is concerned, Foreign Minister Muttaqi was a persona non grata. That is why the foreign ministry did not take lead as far as Doha negotiations are concerned. Subsequently, the excuse me, the Islamic Emirate decided to send the defense minister Mullah Yaqub, who is the son of venerated Mullah Umar, and he conducted the meeting with Pakistani interlocutor in Doha, and there was a verbal agreement, if I may, on 6 points, which actually address the basic question, the basic objection of Pakistan of Afghan soil not being used against Pakistan, and there was an agreement on that. Sohail Shaheen, who was one of the interlocutors in Doha, he said it very clearly in one of his tweets, and it was also in the press. So the defense minister was able to reach an agreement in Doha with Pakistan. However, when you go to Turkey to find out, to further explore that commitment between the two countries and to establish a verifiable mechanism as a result of the agreement in Doha, uh, you find out that the deputy interior minister is actually heading the Rahmatullah Najib, who is basically a Pashtun from Paktia. He is heading the Afghan side. So from the foreign ministry to the defense ministry to the interior ministry, it shows that there is a division inside the Islamic Emirate. There's a little bit of confusion on that side. So I think because of the lack of schooling and diplomacy in statecraft, we must grant them a little bit of allowance as far as that thing is concerned. The sticking issue is the sticking issue is that they are unable to give guarantees that the land of Afghanistan will not be used against Pakistan because there are disparate groups inside Afghanistan on which, to my reckoning, neither the Haqqanis or neither the Kandahar has full control. And some of these groups generally grind their own axe. So I think they are not willing, but they are unable to do something like that. In addition to that, as far as the internal dynamics of both the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan is concerned, there is a little bit of a chasm between Kandahar, the puritanical arm, and the military arm, the Haqqanis. There is a little bit of chasm on that. And there is another issue that crops up, which requires a little more deliberation. I addressed that issue in my column in the Express Tribune today, and I call it the Haqqani complexity because of the paucity of time, I will not discuss it here. But the internal dynamics within the Islamic Emirates of Afghanistan basically stop Afghanistan from taking a position which is very, very tenable. The Afghan interlocutors in Istanbul, they were having very little mandate and they were consulting with Kabul time and time again. Sometime they, as far as the press reports are concerned, at 7 times they agreed something and then they just went back on their agreements. So that was the kind of environment inside Doha. When Pakistan packed its bag, Turkey and Qatar again jumped into the foray and they decided that the meeting should continue. And I hope that this time around it can yield some sort of an agreement between both sides. Jay.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Major General retired Inam Haque, senior analyst, for joining us and giving your insightful views on what do you think about the latest situation when it comes to Nexus, which you call convergence, of course. And now, Pitafi sir, we'd like to have your comment as well, but let's go to our barrister Fatima Shaheen. Barrister Fatima Shaheen, General Saab called it a convergence rather than Nexus. What do you think? What does international law says about that as far as the Nexus or convergence is concerned, and as far as Pakistan is concerned when it comes to self-defense?
I think the international law here is very clear, Maheen, because when we do talk about it, be it the UN Charter, be it for that matter, customary international law, be it the previous judicial ICT precedents, all of them, give member states and otherwise the right to self-defense. And when we talk about self-defense, the notion and the test that we do need to see is the basic premise would here be that, is a state responsible for causing wrongful acts or not failing to act in another country's territory, which in this case would mean, let me give you an example of a very known case in 2005 which came in front of the ICJ. It was by the name of Congo versus Uganda, where Uganda was actually held responsible for operating and causing conflict within Congo, and the causal link between them being able to do so via control was something that was very clearly established. Now, if we were to apply the similar case, or if Pakistan was to take this case at an international forum, that too at the ICJ, exercising or rather defending its right to self-defense. I think the most important thing that Pakistan would need to focus upon, and which it should ideally be able to get through, is the fact that a very smooth link of control, that smooth link of nexus between the Afghan Taliban and the TTP is something that has been established. For example, we have come across a few facts which establish that very control. We see that the TTP's pledge of allegiance to the Taliban leader itself in itself shows direct obedience to them. Then we've also seen that the documentary and the photographic evidence which has come forward, basically that is something which is irrefutable in itself. And then moving on, when we do talk about the relocation, something which the Taliban offered to do with regards to the TTP fighters, that in itself again shows some kind of a protection, impunity, or a control that they would otherwise have on it. So if I was to look at this from an international law perspective, my focus and my case for strengthening Pakistan's narrative, that too in the ICJ, that too under international law, would be that it is using its self-defense, that too within the contours of fulfilling that test of control. Now, practically, if we are to talk about this, the options which I feel as a lawyer Pakistan has would be starting from number one, not only taking this case to the ICJ, based, of course, on the evidence which is put forward. I haven't had that benefit of seeing the exact evidence which is put forward, but if we are to look at the, government officials, the information minister's statement, it talks about there being irrefutable evidence. But having said that, one more thing, Maheen, I think what is very important is that Pakistan should also raise this in the UNSC, because it does make periodic reports, and it does ask all its member states that what are you doing for terrorism, what are the threats that you are facing. So this is an issue that Pakistan, in my opinion, should ideally just not raise with the ICJ, depending of course on the evidence that it actually has, but also
Right.
additionally bring it to the notice of the UNSC.
Right, right, Barrister Fatma. We are very clear with the point now. Farrukh Pitafi, what do you think about the entire situation when it comes to what options does Pakistan have now, of course, with reference to India and Taliban nexus?
Right. Regarding the questioning of a nexus itself, there is such a thing as objective, logic. You have one thing which is very clear. They call it duck test. If it quacks like a duck, if it looks like a duck, it is probably a duck. So right now, today, on 30th of this month, India has launched this operation or exercise Trishul, which is supposed to be on Pakistan's border, and it is supposed to put pressure on Pakistan. Simultaneously, Afghan Taliban has started conducting their exercises in Kandahar today, and aerial exercises. So what does it mean? There is a kind of nexus. And what kind of nexus it is supposed to be? It is called hammer and anvil, that you are threatening the other party, in this case Pakistan, that one side is going to pin you down and the other one is going to go crazy. If that is the case, why wouldn't there be any nexus? Let us go one step further. Let us actually quote India's National Security Advisor in 2014, who says, don't buy their argument that if Taliban are not stopped at Pakistan border, then India will be threatened. Firstly, India will not be threatened. Secondly, Pakistan is not our well-wisher. We will tackle the Taliban in a way we want. Today, India is the most popular country in Afghanistan.
Very well said.
Funding is denied to terrorists by giving them more money. We will do whatever we want. Now, the question is, if all these things are actually proven and these are on record, what do you think is happening? I've been repeatedly pointing out that this whole idea of good Taliban, bad Taliban, that there are certain people who are friendly to Pakistan,
it's a part of history.
No, it was never a good idea. There are people who are going to be Taliban apologists. I can't do anything about them. But the fact is that I'm not going to, when Kabul cannot restrain its firebrands in, trying to dunk Pakistan, I'm not going to ask Pakistani heroes who keep on speaking whatever is the Pakistani sentiment to tamp it down and not speak about it.
Right. Farrukh Pitafi, we were talking in detail about whatever is happening when it comes to the regional security dynamics, especially when we talk about Indian and Taliban nexus, how they're waging a low conflict, a low intensity conflict over Pakistan. And Pakistan knows very well how to, rebuttal and how to give a fierce response, and Pakistan has given that. And now it's time for India and Afghan Taliban to really think that we should not really, escalate the situation more than this and rather focus on dialogue. Next, we'd be taking a look at the much anticipated meeting between President Donald Trump and President Xi Jinping. It happened after 6 years. Of course, this is going to be having an impact on the global markets, on the supply chains, on the businesses on both sides. And what does it really mean for the world? For more analysis, we've been joined by Mr. Moin Haque, former ambassador on Zoom. Thank you so much for joining in. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Moin, for having me on PTV World. Thank you so much.
Moin Haque, first of all, how do you see this meeting coming after 6 years? How do you see both these powerful economies, two most powerful men coming together, and navigating the entire complex situation when it comes to trade war?
Yes, correct, Moin. This news just came from the city of Busan in South Korea. I think the world must have breathed a sigh of relief after so much tension between the two countries and the trade and tariff wars which was going on. And you rightly said that China and US are the two largest economies. In fact, US has a GDP of almost $29 trillion, and China, followed by China with now $19 trillion. Together, they comprise 43% of global GDP. And together, they also represent almost 50% of global manufacturing output. So I think that any tensions between the two countries, especially in the economic field, in the trade field, does have an impact not only on the two economies, bilateral economies, but also on the global economy, because they do trade through complex supply chains, as you mentioned also. A large number of thousands of US companies are operating in China and supplying goods manufactured in China to the rest of the world. So, of course, I think it was a very important news which came from Korea, and the two have decided finally to resolve their trade issues through engagement and talks.
Moin Haque Sahab, do you see this paving a way for further frameworks when it comes to, especially when it comes to the US-Sino relationship, or is it just a temporary halt when it comes to trade war? Although we have heard President Donald Trump saying it's a great success, President Xi Jinping saying that we've agreed on consensus. What is your take?
Sorry, I didn't get the thrust of your question.
Well, my question was, how do you see, are you seeing the entire meeting and the deal as a temporary halt in the trade war, or do you see this as the beginning of a long-term, a permanent solution kind of framework?
I think this is a first step. I would not, because they have not reached into a very comprehensive or far-reaching trade deal. This is just a first step to resolve the pressing issues at the moment, like reduction of US trade tariffs on some of the products of China, easing export controls on rare earth metal, or Chinese and US allowing access to China to some critical technology. So this is just a initial part, but I have a very cautious approach to all this, because in the past also, in the first Trump administration, there were some big talks, but nothing came out of it. But still, I would say that it's a good beginning, and I hope that the two countries would be able to sit together, because both, especially Chinese, have always been saying that in this trade war, no one country would be a winner. So I hope that in the coming days, more details will emerge about the deal that they have struck, and more good news and positive news and outcome will be followed.
Hopefully, we're all hoping that more good news will follow, and it's just the beginning, the right step towards a new direction. How do you see the U.S.'s relationship with other South Asian allies like Japan and South Korea, who are all also, grappling against China's rising economy and military?
Yeah, of course. U.S. Have very traditional and historic relationship with other countries in Asia Pacific, ASEAN, Japan and Korea, India, Australia. And since this US started its focus on China, pivot to Asia, Obama's policy was basically aimed at containment of China. Then during but especially during first Trump's term, and more importantly during the Biden's term, this policy of containment of China became more pronounced. U.S. started gathering their allies in the region to squeeze China, not only politically, militarily, but economically also. And U.S. has a large economic interest in ASEAN, major economic relationship with India. In the recent visit to Japan also, they had some major announcements to come. So I would say that this all is part of a big chessboard, and U.S. is trying not only to engage China in terms of economic issues, because it is in their interests also. As I mentioned earlier to you, there are thousands of US companies which are based in China, making billions of profits and supplying to the entire world. For instance, Tesla, one plant of Tesla in Shanghai is manufacturing Tesla cars, EV cars, and from one plant, 50% of Tesla exports are going to the entire world. So that's the importance of US manufacturers based in China. For them, this engagement is important, but in the geopolitics term, in the great power rivalry, I think that relationship which US has with its partners in Asia Pacific, will always remain very important.
Ambassador Moinul Haque, you mentioned the companies who are producing such things, especially those who were placed and based in China. They've moved out. Do you think after this meeting or deal, as Trump said, are going to be rethinking about their strategies and their relocations in China?
There have been news, of course, when this, especially in the Biden terms, there were some move to relocate some of the U.S. manufacturers and their businesses out of China. But that has not been in a large scale, I would say. Still, major companies, U.S. companies, you name it, GM, Apple, Starbucks, Tesla, I mentioned to you, they are all based there and making profits. And in my view, even during Biden time, there was a pressure on Biden to ease its relationship or its rhetoric on China, because it was hurting these American companies in China. So I think that maybe, of course, some of those who have gone out, or those who are present there, they will be thinking not only to come back or to expand their investments in China. Even during difficult times, when I was in China, the Europeans also, there was a lot of talk about the rivalry between Europe and China also, but most of the major European manufacturers were investing more. For example, during my time, Volkswagen announced that they will put an additional $3 billion to their manufacturing and businesses in China, because it's a big market. It gives them an access in terms of labor, cheap labor, and they make good profit there.
Absolutely. Ambassador Moinul Haque, also let's talk about the reaction of the global financial markets. What their reaction on this meeting? Like you just mentioned, it is a relief, of course, the businesses and for global markets. How do you see, calming the investors' confidence, or rather, I would say uncertainty? There has been an uncertainty in investors. Do you see this as robust, as it should calm their uncertainty?
Yeah, I think at the initial days, it will calm some of the concerns of the global markets because I think I've not been able to follow all of them, but I was reading that there has been some positive reaction from the global markets. I understand today's Pakistan market, I think, has gone down, but they may be too early for them to digest what has happened. But of course, it will give confidence to some of the investors in big countries, especially because China, when have removed some of the control restrictions on Chinese access to US technologies, that will be, I think, if it happens, really happens, it will be a big thing. And also in terms of European and manufacturers, investors, which are part of this global supply chain and industrial chain also, I think they will be also positive sentiments from their side also. So overall, I feel that this news is good for not only the two economies, global economies, but also foreign investors as well.
All right, Ambassador Moinul Haq, also let's take a look at the political win. For Trump, it might be a political win when it comes to, appeasing the local farmers or the local production or the local manufacturing. Do you see this as this, or maybe some critics like the political hawks might criticize this as concession for Beijing?
Of course, Trump has already, I think, claimed success of his strategy of putting pressure on China, that it has got some concessions from China. Of course, he would like to use that for its domestic audience in the United States. And uh, from the Chinese point of view, if we think, I think China was one of the few countries which stood to the US trade war, tariff war pressure, and took their own measures against the United States and did not budge from that pressure. So I think from both the countries, there is a win-win situation. Both were able to come to terms with their issues and sit down on the table and resolve these trade issues. But for China, I think what more importantly, it is that the China has been able to talk and engage with the US on equal terms. So there is more symbolism, which is also, I think, at play here.
Right, Ambassador Moinul Haq, how do you see this deal playing out for the agricultural states?
Yes, I think one of the concessions which I was reading, because the news are just coming in, is that China has decided to import soya beans from the United States, which is a very important export, traditionally very important exports of the US to China, one of the most important one, I think 100 billion plus of agriculture produced, predominantly soybean used to. So I think it will be important step because China has a big needs. Though China is one of the largest producers of agriculture products in the world also, but being a big country, 1.4 billion, China has a big needs of agriculture products from around the world. I think it imports more than $500 billion of agriculture produce. Even from Pakistan, the focus I know has been on the agricultural products, though we don't have that capacity to meet the needs of the big market. But of course, you are right that agriculture would play a very important role in this deal, tariff deal and trade deal.
Thank you very much, Moinul Haq, former ambassador, for joining us and letting us know your views on this important meeting, a very long-awaited meeting. And of course, it's a historic and landmark meeting between President Trump and President Xi Jinping. Now, Fatma, coming to you, Barrister Fatma, how do you see this and what would be your comment? We had a detailed discussion with Ambassador Moinul Haq, former ambassador.
I think I would agree with most of what he said, because of course this is something very preliminary to start off with, whereas of course it does signal to and of course we generally see as well, other than signaling, two biggest superpowers coming together to ease down trade tensions, to work for a greater good the economy, and as said by the previous speaker, that generally this would also perhaps support the Trump's narrative of make America great again, and then focusing on American economy, the way he actually brings in economy to also stop war. So I think generally, if you were to analyze it, it is in sharp contrast to what Biden was maybe seeking, because there we saw that there was perhaps more caution in such engagement. But here we've seen that, the fact that Trump has come forward, directly negotiated, although there are still a lot of questions which need to be talked about. Yes, we do understand that China would have delayed, the restrictions it was otherwise placing on the export of rare earth minerals, and then it has also agreed to buy American soybeans and in return get reduced tariffs from America. But I still feel that there are a lot of issues which still need to be resolved. And then again, I feel what we do need to see in the bigger picture is that how, two countries as powerful as these coming together would not only help stabilize their own economies, but also give back to the region and to the world
Thank you
at
so
large.
much,
Because
Barrister
this
Fatima
would
Shaheen, for
inevitably, generally create greater opportunities for the world too, including Pakistan. Thank you.
thank you so much, Barrister Fatima Shaheen,
Thank
for giving us your views on this important meeting. Farrukh Pitafi, coming to you now, what do you think about the entire situation, looking at China and America, two greatest economies coming together, joining forces? How do you see the impact on the global economy?
Right. I think that world economy and human civilization both have actually dodged a very important bullet today. Because if there's going to be any kind of decoupling, then both countries are going to suffer immensely. And the world economy also becomes divided into two silos. So on one side, the fact that US has reduced the tariff, particularly it has come down to 47% from 100 and God knows 200% or whatever that was. And then fentanyl is going to be cut down. On the other side, China, as was pointed out, is going to resume buying soybean and sorghum. And on the other side, of course, when it comes to rare earths, the deal is actually such for one whole year, there's going to be no stoppage on the export of that to the entire world. So the world benefits from such a situation. And sadly, so far, what has been happening is that whenever you will see bad actors, patently bad actors, who are spokespeople for a kind of Cold War. Why? Because then there are two silos which are created, and then bad actors like India, like Afghanistan, like Israel, they can hide behind tribalism of their each side, and they can say, look, we are getting away with it, but we are good to you, so please be good to us. So I think that today is a great news for the world, for America, for China, and for Pakistan also.
And lastly, how would it impact the businesses and investors in a one-liner, if you would say?
Yeah, first of all, one company, and NVIDIA, has become the first ever $5 trillion company because China's market is opening up.
Right.
So clearly, the economy is going to be better.
Thank you so much, Farrukh Pitafi. This was a detailed discussion on a historic and landmark meeting between President Donald Trump and President Xi Jinping. This is not a successful first step between two greatest economies of the world, America and China. It's also a sigh of relief for businesses, and not just for the national economies of both these countries, but for the global economy as well. And we're all hoping that this is a first step towards the right direction. This is all for tonight's show. Stay tuned to Pakistan TV.